Welcome to Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. I'm your host, Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network. And joining me, my co-host, Stephen Young of Roto Grinders, better known as Stevie TPFL. And this week, we're previewing the Great American Race. Yes, that's the Daytona 500 here on Running Hot. Stevie, last week, we finally saw some cars on track at the Clash. Ryan Preece ended up taking his first win in a cup car. Now, it doesn't count as an official race win because it was an exhibition, but Ryan Preece wins a race that started off normal. First half, really great racing, and then the second half just got weird. Stevie, what can we take away from the Clash at Bowman Gray?
I think we take away a lot, actually. Usually we come on here and we're like, not a lot, but there was a ton of fall off with that new left side tire where, William Byron and Kyle Larson went very hard there for like the first 50, 60, 70 laps. And they were falling off big time on that last 20 laps. So that's super encouraging. As far as the horsepower, a lot of drivers said that track is so small that they didn't even get to full throttle. So I don't know if the horsepower really mattered a lot, but I mean, it's really encouraging that we had some tire fall off with the more horsepower, and short tracks have some promise this year. But overall, really happy for Ryan Preece. I'm glad NASCAR tried to put the wet tires on there, and it's an expedition race. That's the perfect opportunity to be all right, well, what's going to happen if this happens in the actual race? So the only thing I wish they would have done differently with about 20 to 25 laps to go was to clear the track dry and let some of those guys in the back put on dry tires and see what would have happened, because I think that would have been even more entertaining. But overall, happy for Ryan Preece. He was good before the rain, sleet, whatever we want to call it. I don't think he had a race-winning car, but he's a short track guy, and he got the job done. And it's really cool for him. I mean, you saw the excitement in victory lane. So right. I'm a Ryan Preece guy. I like when he does well.
Yeah, it was definitely some things to take away, and I actually had a couple other takeaways. I actually do think the horsepower does make a difference when you're kind of putting your foot to the throttle coming off the corner as well, which could create a little more tire wear just because you accelerate faster with more horsepower. So it could create a little extra tire wear there. Another thing I think that was really interesting to me was Cody Ware wasn't bad. He's in a Chevy now. He's aligned with RCR. So I thought that was pretty interesting. He unfortunately got caught up in that big wreck early in the last chance qualifiers. So we didn't get to see what he really could potentially do, but he showed some speed in practice and, started in the back half of the field, but not the back half of the field there. So that was pretty interesting. And like you mentioned, the fall off I thought was really noticeable. That first stint we had, I think 4 different leaders, right? So it was Larson, and then it was Byron, and then I forget who passed Byron, but these were all clean, normal passes under green flag conditions. I thought it was really good racing. So definitely encouraging. Hopefully we're going in the right direction here a little bit with some of these package changes. Obviously, we're not taking huge swings here with the horsepower, but any little bit can help, as we talked about in our preview show last week. And I do think we saw a bit of a difference there. Also, again, happy that Ryan Preece was able to take the win, his first win in a cup car, beating a field of, yes, it was 38 cars because you still had to, get into the show. So even though it was only a 23-car race, he beat all those other cars in terms of getting into the show as well. So I thought that was fantastic. The only other thing was the fuel thing I thought was a little weird, Stevie. There were some guys that came in for fuel, and then they kind of just got screwed because NASCAR was like, okay, well, everybody has to come in now for fuel and you get your spot back. So they tried to play a little strategy game, and it didn't end up working out for them. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I feel like the only thing that they could have potentially done when they ran all those caution laps was throw in a competition caution earlier and said, if teams were getting low, hey, NASCAR teams we're getting low because of all the caution laps. There was a ton of caution laps before we even went back racing. If you remember, I mean, they're oh, well, the track's too wet, and they pulled the cars back in. So I think at some point, if teams were getting low on fuel, even before Kyle Larson had the issue, or even when the Kyle Larson issue happened, all right, we had a car run out of gas. we're going to bring them down. We're going to let them fuel under, nobody's losing or gaining positions. We're going to give Kyle Larson his laps back, but put him at the end of the field or something. Like, it's a tough situation in general, but I don't want fuel to be a thing in a race like the Clash. Like, it's not a thing for me. Like, this is supposed to be entertaining. When you got a guy like Kyle Larson, big name in the industry, Chase Elliott, big name in the industry, we don't want these guys running out of gas and like not being entertaining for the fans. So I think maybe a little more proactive next time when they run that many caution laps, and just say, hey, we're going to throw a competition caution here, and everybody's coming down pit road and putting fuel in. No one's allowed to do tires, and see what happens. But yeah, I mean, it's a damn if you do, damn if you don't situation, in my opinion, too. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I guess is you could require them to fill back up under that halfway break, and then there wouldn't have been that issue, right?
Yeah,
so
I agree.
But I mean, that's just one of those other things. But otherwise, I thought that first half of the race was awesome racing. I thought the last chance qualifier was really entertaining as well. So some good racing there at Bowman Gray, at least for the majority, I would say, of the weekend or of the day, since it was a one-day event after getting delayed multiple times. But now we are looking forward to the best race in the world, maybe other than the Indy 500, in my opinion, but the Daytona 500, the best race definitely on the NASCAR schedule in terms of importance. It's, essentially NASCAR's Super Bowl. We kick off the year with the biggest race of the year, the Daytona 500. It is every driver's goal to win it at least once in their careers because it is the one that comes with the most prestige. At Daytona International Speedway, a 2.5 mile, pretty steeply banked oval. And of course, Stevie, we slap on the drafting package here. So we limit the horsepower. We do some aero things to create the draft. And that gives us some fun racing at Daytona. Talk about racing at Daytona.
Wild. I mean, that's what it is. It's one of the most unpredictable races of the season. It's tighter than Talladega. Talladega's just as fast, but it has a little bit more room. We talk about this all the time. It's weird because, NASCAR season starts their season with the biggest race of the year. Where a lot of sports, you're finishing for the championship at the end. And I mean, the championship at the end of the year matters a lot for NASCAR. I'm not saying it doesn't, but you ask some drivers like Brad Keselowski, hey, do you want to win a Daytona 500? Probably more than most. So it's such a huge race in itself. There's a ton of people. The place is packed. I live pretty close to Daytona, and it's already busy. I mean, I was over in Daytona yesterday.
Yep.
There's people already camping out. Like, it's the event of the year. And it's a wild race in itself. Outside of everything else that happens, the racing at Daytona is very aggressive. We've seen fuel strategy. We've seen all kinds of different stuff here with the next gen car. But at the end of the day, like, the aggressiveness hasn't changed. It's such an aggressive race. If not, it's gotten even more aggressive because you want to be running up front with this next gen car compared to, 10 years ago where you could be running 25th with 3 laps to go and win the race. It's just not the same anymore. So yeah, I mean, very aggressive, bump drafting, very fast, very little room for mistakes here every time we come to Daytona.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Not a lot of room for mistakes. And Stevie, I was tweaking my models all off season, especially, as NFL season was winding down and I had more time, really been updating my models. And one thing I noticed, just kind of setting up the simulations for the Daytona 500, if we look since we've gone to the 40 car era, which of course now we can have 41 cars again with the important driver provisional, essentially. I don't know what to call it, but since we've moved to that in 2016 at Daytona, so whether it's the first race of the year, the Daytona 500, or the second Daytona race of the year, which most of them since 2020 have been right around the playoff cutoff, so pretty intense. 42.5% of the field does not finish either on the lead lap or on one lap down. So that just shows how crazy Daytona is, right? And certainly, like, the better cars will have a better chance of not being in that 42%, and the worst cars will have a higher chance. But there is some like almost anti-correlation there, where like the really bad cars, they just hang back and wait for everybody to wreck, and then they move forward. But generally speaking, when I use my simulation model, the smallest DNF rate, I should say not DNF rate, but the smallest rate I have of any driver staying on either the lead lap or the one lap down, the highest rate, I should say, so the smallest rate of not doing that is Kyle Busch at 35.5% of not finishing on the first 2 laps. And the highest rate I have is some of those backmarker cars, right? So you get the idea. The average rate of not finishing on either the first or second lap at the end of the race is 42.5%. So even the best drivers in the world, the best super speedway racers in the world, Ryan Blaney, 36.5% of the time I have him not finishing on the first 2 laps. And it gets even worse for really aggressive drivers like Joey Logano. Joey Logano, I actually have at 42.5%. So right at the average of the whole field. So Joey Logano does, even though he leads a whole lot, sometimes leading is almost the worst place to be, or right behind the lead, because that's where you really get caught up in the big one as drivers are gunning for the lead late in the race to win the biggest race in the world. And Joey Logano is often there in that lead group, and that's where the intensity is at its highest, usually at the end of the race. So when we talk about Daytona 500, Stevie, these top tier drivers, they're still going to wreck out more than a third of the time, whether it's Blaney or Logano or Chase Elliott or William Byron, right? They're going to have problems more than a third of the time in the long run in this kind of race, which makes it really hard to bet these drivers at short odds. So just one thing I was thinking about there, Stevie, when you were talking about how tight it is at Daytona compared to Talladega.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, when you look at the Daytona 500 by itself, the last time the pole sitters won here was 2000 with Dale Jarrett. So, like, and if you look at some of the pole winners over the last 26 years in that time, like it's the who's who of NASCAR and the teams, like big name teams. So, like, yeah, the July race, August race, whenever it is now, they've had some pole sitters win. Ryan Blaney just did it last year in that fall race. But yeah, I mean, it's such a tough race, and man, but you still look at it and you're like, if you look at the Daytona 500 in the last 10, 15 years, and you're like, it's still the who's list of like who's won this race, and it's still, you still got to perform at the end of the day, and you got to rely a lot on your teammates, and you got to rely a lot on your manufacturer teammates. So
yep.
It's just a different kind of racing than we see basically all season. We'll talk about it again next week with like Atlanta. Even Atlanta is a little different than like Daytona, race wise, but it's a beast of its own. I think Daytona is very different than Talladega, even though we classify them in the same like super speedway drafting track type of races. I just, you're not running 4 wide all the way across, like you are at Talladega, at Daytona. You're going to get in a lot of incidents and that issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely a little bit different style racing than Daytona than Talladega or Atlanta, which is even a little more different, or Echo Park as they call it now. So Stevie, one thing that's unique to the Daytona 500 is how we have teams and drivers qualify for this race on Wednesday. So we're recording this midday on Tuesday. On Wednesday, there will be a practice session, and then they will qualify in the evening. And that qualifying, all it does is set the front row. So the front row gets locked in first and second place. So first and second fastest drivers will start the Daytona 500 first and second. But everybody else is still qualifying for a lot of reasons as well. It'll determine their starting order for the Daytona Duels, which will be run on Thursday evening. Now, the Daytona Duels are 2 qualifying races that determine your starting position in the race for everybody after second place. And so you want to start, it's important to start up front, but it's also the duels. They're just a great way to get a read on your car ahead of the actual race on Sunday. So they're two dual races, right? So we're actually seeing racing on Thursday. Now, it won't necessarily be the full intensity racing, because it's not fun to just wreck your car middle of the week and then have to go fix it up and then, drive it basically brand new on Sunday. So not knowing what you got, not knowing if everything got fixed. So it's in a little bit different type of racing, even though it's still drafting racing at Daytona, and with fewer cars, it makes it a little more wiggle room in terms of like being able to kind of avoid a major incident there. But at the same time, we have 8 cars trying to race their way in. There are 8 drivers that are not locked in to this Daytona 500, and only 4 of them can make the Daytona 500. When we talk about that Wednesday qualifying, Stevie, the 2 fastest of those 8, technically 9 with Jimmy Johnson as well, but he's kind of a special case with that provisional. The 2 fastest will lock themselves in to the Daytona 500 on speed, and the others, they'll have to try to finish as the top finishing driver, not locked in on speed in their respective duels. So they'll split in between evenly between the 2 duels. So talk about just kind of the special events of this week.
I mean, yeah, again, it goes back to we're starting the season with the biggest race of the year, and they make it the biggest race of the year because of everything going on outside of the race this week. So when you're looking at these dual races, and they changed it this year, which I like the change. Like these people that get in on time can't affect how the duels. Like they're still racing for where they're going to start in the Daytona 500, but they're not taking away spots from people trying to race themselves in, and then it becomes, oh, who's getting in because of time? Like, hey, after qualifying, we know these 2 guys are locked in. These other people are going to the duels to race in, and whoever gets in from this duel and whoever finishes better in this duel. I like that. Like, don't make it confusing. Don't make it confusing for the fans. Like, lock people in on time, go out and race and earn your spot in. So I like all of that. But yeah, I mean, just we're going to learn a little bit with the dual races. Every year we always learn a little bit. And this year, I think, you and I could both probably agree on this. We're going to be really watching how the Chevys push in these dual races. And I think they're going to potentially be a little more aggressive in the first duel with these Chevys, just kind of seeing how these cars feel in the draft and how they're pushing and stuff, because it's a very new body, and it's going to be a situation where they have not run this car on a super speedway outside of a sim. They have no idea how it's going to feel. They're not going to push it in practice. I think we're really going to see the Chevys maybe be a little bit more driving with intention during these dual races. So I think we're going to be watching that. And there's still some other intangibles too, but yeah, qualifying in the duels, always very fun for Daytona.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go over those drivers that are not locked into the field, well, Jimmy Johnson he's got that provisional, but the other 8 drivers, Corey LaJoie in an RFK racing car in the, I believe it's number 99, if I'm correct there. Let me look it up. Yeah, number 99 for Corey LaJoie. We're going to have Justin Allgaier in the number 40 Junior Motorsports car, Chandler Smith in the number 36 Front Row Motorsports car, Corey Heim in the number 67 2311 car, Anthony Alfredo in that number 62 Beard Motorsports Chevy, BJ McLeod, number 78 Live Fast Motorsports, that's the team he owns, Chevy. And then we have Casey Mears in the Garage 66 Ford. And then finally, we have JJ Yaley in the number 44 New York Racing Team Chevy. So those are the 8 drivers not locked in to the field. So any last things we should talk about, Stevie, whether it's for betting or even for fantasy? I know DFS, it's a big weekend. I know you and I are going to be playing all sorts of DFS contests. Any last intangibles for betting or fantasy strategies?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but weather always matters. So make sure you're paying attention to weather. Is it going to be a rain shortened race? Is it going to be cold? That stuff always matters. So pay attention to that. And just kind of going off of what you were just talking about, like with the drivers, like Jimmy Johnson does not have to push it in the duels or qualifying. He has that pass provisional, whatever they want to call it. I love it. Let him race. If a 7-time champion wants to come race at Daytona, if Martin Truex wants to come race at Daytona, put these guys in the race. They have earned the right for so many years to come race this race. So I'm all for it, but it'd be interesting. You look at, I was just listening to you like name off some of those drivers. And I mean, like that's 4 or 5 really strong cars, trying to get in. So it's going to be a really fun week. And, there's definitely some ways to take advantage of it. You and I were talking pre-show about, do we start like getting on Corey LaJoie now? And like you make sure your action is to race and not to qualify, and make sure your book, definitely has that kind of stuff. But Corey LaJoy, and I know we don't really have him in our picks, but Corey LaJoy is someone that I feel really good about, trying to get early week stuff on those books that, have that where he has to race in the race. So you're not just losing money if he doesn't get in. But that's an RFK car. Ford. Corey LaJoy is very good at running these Daytona and Talladega races. And on top of that, RFK likes to run up front. So Corey LaJoy is just one that I wanted to mention really quick before we got into our actual picks here.
Yeah, and there's a good chance he qualifies on speed because we know how good the Fords are at Daytona and super speedway qualifying. Just like Chandler Smith in that 36 Front Row Motorsports, almost might have an even better shot just getting in on speed because we know that Penske FRM alliance has been the cream of the crop at qualifying at super speedways. But Corey LaJoy, you're right. So just to kind of clarify what Stevie was saying, some books will void your bet on Corey LaJoy if their house rules are must start the race. But some other books have all action counts as long as he attempts to qualify. So if he doesn't make the race, your bet still counts. They're not voiding that. So you really need to be sure of your sportsbook's house rules if you're going to be betting Corey LaJoy before the Daytona duels, before we find out if he's locked into the field or not. But if he's in the field, my model has monster value on him, absolutely monster value. So I will be hunting for those sports books that are going to void if the driver doesn't start the race, see if Corey LaJoy is there, and probably bet him in almost every single market. My model, if he makes the race, Stevie, my model will have Corey LaJoy as the 10th highest win probability.
Which is, and again, like, if you could take advantage of the books that are going to cancel your bets if he doesn't make the race, I mean, I think he's that one that I have circled. Like, this is the guy that I really want to pay attention to this week.
So we got a pre-pick in there. We got a pre-stage 1, stage 2. We got this. This is like our qualifying pick, but it's not for qualifying. It's just like, it's our early weekend. Like, we're practicing. This is like our practice pick. So, all right, we got a pre-pick in there, but it is time to dive into our bets. We'll drive through the race stage by stage. We'll give a pick in stage 1 as our shorter odds bet. Then we'll ramp it up in stage 2 with some longer odds. Finally, we'll race through stage 3, end up in victory lane with our combined favorite, not one bet, but 2 bets for this one. It's the Daytona 500. We're going big. So, by the way, we hit our victory lane pick in the Daytona 500 last year, and we hit our victory lane pick in the Daytona 500 2 years ago. Both times it was William Byron to win the race, and he won both of those. So we'll have to see if we go back to the well here with William Byron, but make sure to stick around for our victory lane pick. But it is time to throw the green flag on the Daytona 500 and fire off for stage 1. All right, Stevie, first pick here. You are going to a manufacturer pick.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just a super speedway like staple for me almost every time, and it doesn't always work, but when I look at super speedway racing and how aggressive you have to be, I always look at Ford. So I'm going winning manufacturer Ford plus 165. Just kind of looking at average running position at Daytona, the top 4 are Joey Logano, Chris Buescher, Austin Cindric, Brad Keselowski. So 4 Fords, and we talk about it all the time. You want to be running up front in this race. Yeah, granted, when you look at some of those average running positions, Chris Buescher is the only one out of those 4. Oh, I guess Cindric won a race. So 2 of those guys have won races here. We know how good Ryan Blaney is on these races. And again, I just think that Ford potentially has an advantage on Sunday. It's supposed to be a cooler day. We know the Fords typically run and make a little more horsepower when it's colder outside. So I think just kind of everything points to me with Ford. So I'm and it wasn't necessarily on purpose, but I'm very Ford heavy on my bets this week. And I think it's going to be a good spot for Ford. I don't really trust or know what's going to happen with these Chevy noses and how they're going to bump. I know the Fords bump really good. Their bump drafting is just by far the best. So unless Chevy made a really big adjustment for that, I think Chevy's going to be more focused on the intermediate stuff and short package stuff than they are going to be at Daytona. So I'm going Ford, winning manufacturer, plus 165 for a lot of reasons, to be honest.
Yeah, I like it. I have them obviously 1, 2, 3 in my model with the Team Penske cars in terms of win probability. And then Bubba Wallace is next. And then I got another Ford and then a Chevy and then another Ford, right? So if you look at my top 7 drivers, 5 of them in terms of win probability are Fords. And then I talked about it. If Corey LaJoie makes the show, he'll be in my top 10. Of course, Brad Keselowski's up there. And the front row motorsports guys, you can't count them out either. Certainly, I'll be talking about them in a little bit. But to get to my first pick here, Stevie, I'm going to go a little off the wall here. My first pick of the year for a race pick, Cody Ware for a top 10 finish at 6-1 odds. Hear me out. In the last 6 Daytona races that Cody Ware has run, he has finished 20th, 25th, 4th, 14th, 6th, and 17th, right? So there's a 4th and a 6th in there. And I talked about at the top with the Clash, they have moved to Chevy with an RCR alliance. I think that's going to step up the Rick Ware Racing Team's game this year. Having that RCR alliance, RCR very good at super speedways. I think Austin Dillon, a couple of Daytona wins in his career. Kyle Busch, we know, is great. Tyler Reddick did well when he was in the 8 car there. So at super speedways. So I think Cody Ware could easily hang with the pack and even run towards the front of the pack if he wanted to. But then there's also the other option where he could just lay back and let everybody crash out and finish inside the top 10 like he does every so often. He's done it twice in the past 6 races. That's 33% of the time. That would be 2-1 as fair value if that were the long-term rate. Now, I'm not saying that should be the long-term rate, but you get the idea. I think he should be much more competitive in speed and ability to race in the draft and have teammates and move around. And there's always the alternative option that he could fall back on as well. So I actually have fair value closer to 5-1 on Cody Ware here. So I'll take 6-1 for a top 10.
Yeah, if my memory serves me right, he has been a little bit more aggressive over the last couple races at Daytona, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I'm all for getting some exposure to Cody Ware. I wasn't able to get it at 6-1 here in Florida. I'm not showing value. I think it was like 3-1.
Yeah.
I would definitely be interested at 6-1. I like long shot top 10s at Daytona, just like you do. We talk about it every time we come on and do this show. So no issues with Cody Ware. Like his strategy, like I said, like if I remember correctly last year, because it was the Arby's car, right? He was up there
23 laps led in the second Daytona race last year. Yeah.
He was up there like getting in the stuff. So no, I mean, good for Cody Ware. I like the change over to Chevy for this team. I think it's going to be helpful. So yeah, I mean, I have no issues taking some shots at 6-1 here for Cody Ware.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where it's like the value, it's 6-1. Yep. It's a good bet. There's a couple books that have 6-1. BetMGM, FanDuel has 6-1. So make sure you're shopping around. And if you have access to either BetMGM or FanDuel, I like it at 6-1. Cody Ware for a top 10 finish. So Stevie's stage 1 pick, Ford, winning manufacturer, plus 165. My stage 1 pick, Cody Ware for a top 10 finish. Now, before we move on to stage 2, don't forget to sign up for Action Pro for real-time pick alerts from experts like myself, Brandon Anderson, Chris Raybon, Sean Kerner, Stuckey, and our entire Action Network team. Plus, you can access our pro projections powered by Sean Kerner, myself, and our predictive analytics team. Of course, with Action Pro for the NASCAR package on the Action Network side of things here, we will have race flags and practice flags for every race where we have practice. Not super speedways, we don't care about practice, but all the other non-super speedway races, I will have practice flags over the weekend in the Action Network package. And midweek after a race, I will have race flags from that previous weekend's race, so you can use it going forward to help make predictions for future races. So just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and get $20 off the annual price with promo code POD20. Don't miss out on the best bets at the best prices. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro and use promo code POD20. That's POD20. $20 a year off of Action Pro. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet to Stevie's NASCAR package over at Roto Grinders, we have a special offer for Running Hot listeners as well. Use the promo code Running Hot. That's all one word, Running Hot, when signing up at Roto-Grinders for $10 off of a monthly subscription or $20 off the annual package, where you get access to all of Stevie's NASCAR fantasy content, DFS content, and my practice flags will be there as well. All right, we have completed stage 1, Stevie. We're going to fuel up, change some tires, and fire off for stage 2. Second stage, you're sticking with the Ford theme here. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Buescher is someone that I absolutely love at Daytona, just in general. And I was a little thrown off by his line. Like I mean, I have him at fair value around 18-1, and so the 22.5, I was very happy to bet this. So I have Chris Buescher at plus 2250 at a half a unit here, and I say a half a unit because I do spread out. I think I bet like 11 outrights, and I spread it out where I'm at least doubling my money. So I had spread out my unit sizes and stuff. So you can use that promo code and you can see all of those bets. So there you go. But yeah, Chris Buescher, he's finished inside the top 10 in 5 of the last 8 Daytona races. He has the second highest average running position behind Joey Logano. We talked about it a little bit ago. RFK has taken it where they want to run up front. Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Ryan Preece, Blaney, Logano, like these Fords, they want to run up front. They know that the best opportunity to win these races right now with this next-gen car is up front. And Chris Buescher, not only does he have a win, he has a runner-up. He's very capable of winning this race. So the fact that I was able to grab him at 22 is just a good number, and I'm super happy with this one. I said I didn't plan on being very Ford heavy, but I ended up very Ford heavy on my bets this week, and hopefully the weather does end up being very cool like it's supposed to be. And I think we're going to see the Fords up front pushing, kind of just controlling this race, and Chris Buescher is one of my favorite bets this week at this current number.
Yeah, I will say this. I know my model, when I look compared to maybe yours or other people out there, my model has more chaos in the Daytona races, so I don't have value at 22.5, but he is 25-1 at DraftKings, and I do have value on that. I have him at 24-1 as fair value. So at 25-1 at DraftKings, I can definitely get behind this Chris Buescher outright bet. And I agree with everything you said. It's just my model does introduce more chaos than I think most other people's model in the industry. And that's because I tune it on the chaos races. I tune it on the Daytona 500. I tune it on, the Daytona playoff cutoff race, which isn't going to be as intense this year. And I'm going to adjust for that when we get to that. But this is still the Daytona 500. This is a chaos race because everybody wants to win the Daytona 500. But I like this pick. If you can get it 25-1 at DraftKings, I will fully back this one. Chris Buescher, 25-1 at DraftKings. Stevie likes it, 22.5-1 for Chris Buescher to win the Daytona 500. For my stage 2 pick, and I alluded to this, we'll be talking about some Front Row Motorsports guys. And if you follow me in the Action app, or if you read my article, you already know I took Todd Gilliland for a top 5 finish. I'm going to go to both of his full-time teammates, Noah Gragson and Zane Smith, and I'm going to ladder their finishing positions. Right now, top 10 at FanDuel, plus 380 for Noah Gragson, plus 430 for Zane Smith. Top 5, 11-1 for Noah, 14-1 for Zane Smith. I think that's crazy. Top 3, 20-1 for Noah, 25-1 for Zane Smith. And over at Caesars, both are 70-1. I like the Noah bet more than I like the Zane bet there. We've seen Noah be more aggressive in getting to the front, trying to stay at the front. So maybe I'm not doing Zane Smith at 71, but I'm definitely doing Noah at 70-1 to win. And again, it's Fords. It's this equipment. These cars are so fast. We saw Todd Gilliland lead 50-something laps at one of the super speedway races in 2024. And Noah Gragson, we've seen get towards the front, try to win races in the past. He's just an aggressive driver. And Zane Smith has always been good at drafting tracks in the truck series. It hasn't necessarily translated to the cup level yet, but at the same time, he has started producing some super speedway results, right? He finished 9th at Talladega in our most recent super speedway race, which was in the playoffs last year. So just one of those things where the results haven't quite fallen his way, but he definitely has the equipment. He definitely has the talent. We know how talented Zane Smith is. And I mean, we've seen Zane Smith finish in the top 3 couple times in the Cup Series in non-super speedway races. So it's only a matter of time before he gets it done at a super speedway as well. So this is just, again, Stevie, another kind of like Ford bet, equipment bet. These front row motorsports guys are just priced way too long, especially Noah Gragson, in my opinion, where he's super aggressive, loves to get to the front. But I think both of them are priced way too long at 14-1 for a top 5 for Zane Smith. I mean, that's crazy, right? Like 1 out of every 15 times. Think about all the times like a third of the field is going to get wiped out, and more than a third of the field, as we talked about. 42.5% is the average like non-lead lap rate. So there'll be times half the field is wiped out, and if he avoids that, all of a sudden he's looking at just needing to finish top 5 out of 20 cars. So I just think this is way too long for both these drivers.
Yeah, I bet both of these top 10s, and I bet both of these guys to win the race. So, I mean, I'm right there with you, and you are able to get a little bit better odds than I was able to get on these guys, kind of just having one book here in Florida. But I'm right there with you. I really like both these guys. I like how Noah is very, very, very aggressive, so he's likely either going to finish inside the top 5, top 10, or wreck. And, I mean, that's kind of what we're looking for. I mean, that is exactly what we're looking for when we're betting these long shot guys. We know that wrecking is possible. And that's how we spread out our units and stuff as well, like we talk about every single time we go to this racetrack. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't really have much to add outside of what you said. I like the equipment. I like Ford. I'm really Ford heavy for the Daytona 500 this week. So Toyota probably win, but it should be okay if it's like Bubba.
Yeah, or Denny, right? It would be a feel-good story if Denny Hamlin won after the finish to last year in the offseason. So, but that goes to show anybody can win this race. So my picks in Stage 2, Noah Gragson and Zane Smith finishing ladders. Stevie's Stage 2 pick, Chris Buescher to win the Daytona 500 at 22.5 or 25-1 if you can get it there at DraftKings. So that's Stage 2. We're going to drive through Stage 3. Take the checkered flag and drive into victory lane. Let's see if we can three-peat, Stevie. And we're cheating a little bit because we liked 2 drivers here. So we're going to take them both because it's super speedway racing. And we want a couple of chances here to get that win. So first of the 2 drivers, I will name it, Stevie. Ryan Preece, best odds out there, 35-1 at Caesars, coming off that Clash win.
Again, another Ford. We've talked a lot about Fords. We've talked a lot about RFK. They want to run up front. And Ryan Preece is a guy that runs up front, and he's been caught in a lot of stuff. And, you can't predict where the wrecks are going to happen, but you want guys running up front. So at the end of the day, Ryan Preece, RFK, we know they're going to be aggressive. I'm on Ryan Preece a lot. Again, like, another Ford. I really like all the data for Fords this weekend. And I know I keep talking about it, but I really like the data for Fords. And I mean, if you look at Toyota and you look at Chevy, like it's been very Ford heavy and Chevy heavy. I don't think the Toyotas have won a race with the next gen car at Daytona in the 8 races. I think it's 4 Chevys and 4 Fords, with William Byron being the only person with multiple wins. So I'm going Ford heavy. I really like Ryan Preece, and it's just, again, it's equipment. It's, obviously coming off of a win at Bowman Gray is a big confidence boost for Ryan Preece. And, RFK, like, is Brad 100% healthy? Does Corey LaJoie make the race? Who's pushing who? Like, these guys want to win this race for their organization. And, you talk about feel-good stories with Denny Hamlin. I think it would feel really good for Jack Roush with these Biffle-type numbers to win the Daytona 500. So, really pulling for RFK this weekend as well.
Yeah, Ryan Preece is one of the biggest values in my model. I was surprised when my model simulations ran, and he ended up in 5th in win probability. That's why when you're saying Ford winning manufacturer, I said Blaney 1, Cindric 2, Joey 3, Bubba 4, then a Ford 5th. It was Ryan Preece. So I have 5th in win probability. Now, maybe that's a bit too high, but you get the idea. My model loves RFK racing, whether it's Preece, Buescher, Keselowski, Corey LaJoie. My model loves the RFK equipment at super speedway racing. So even if my model is a little too high on him, there is a lot of wiggle room between what my model has and 35-1 or even 30-1 if that's all you can get on Ryan Preece, because I think the 35 is only at Caesars, but there's 30-1 at the Camby books. FanDuel has 27-1. Even BetMGM has 25-1. And, I liked Buescher at 25-1. I like Preece at 25-1 because my model actually has Preece slightly ahead of Buescher, just barely. So, I'm fine with Ryan Preece at any of those numbers as well. Also, we have a second victory lane pick. Stevie, what do we got?
Yeah, I mean, one of the only two Chevys that I bet to win this race, which is weird because, if you think about the Chevys that are available, but we're going to Mr. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., a guy that was made for this moment, I think is the best way to put it. We talked a lot about Fords, and again, I'm very Ford focused, but Chevy has won 3 of the last 4 Daytona 500s, and one of those was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's just so good at these types of racetracks. He doesn't really have alliances. Obviously he's a Chevy, but he really doesn't have alliances. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has said it multiple times. He's going to push who's ever fast and, try to go to the front. And that's exactly what I want to hear when I'm trying to bet on a guy to win a race where it's such an unpredictable race. So Stenhouse, he kind of feels these races out. He will run towards the back if he needs to. He'll run up front if he needs to. He gets caught up in stuff being uber aggressive. If he doesn't get caught up in stuff, he's probably going to finish really far forward. So I'll take that kind of guy at this type of racetrack anytime. I wish the odds in Florida were a little bit better. I still bet him because I almost always bet him here. But I like the 40-1 at Caesars way more than I like the Hard Rock number. I think I bet him at like 25-1. So that'll tell you how much I like Stenhouse, and just he's basically an auto bet for me every time we go to Daytona because he's another one of those guys that's either going to run up front or probably end in a wrecked race car. And, that's the kind of guys that I like on these races. You got to be aggressive to win at Daytona.
Yeah, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 40-1 at Caesars and 40-1 at Bet365. So if you have either of those books, that's where you would want to try to get him at that price. And 40-1 is absolutely bonkers. That's just a silly number for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's won 4 super speedway races in his career. The guy is a super speedway ace, a super speedway specialist, if you will. Like you said, made for this moment. This is what Ricky Stenhouse Jr. does best. 4 career wins at super speedways, and won the Daytona 500 before. So it's just a silly number, in my opinion. Even with the chaos of Daytona, right? He's going to DNF 40-something% of the time. The other 60 or 50-something% of the time, he's probably going to be in contention for the win. Like, he's the ultimate checkers or wreckers guy. And if he's not wrecking, he is looking for those checkers. So our victory lane picks, Ryan Preece, 35-1, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 40-1 to win the Daytona 500. And finally, Stevie, not a bet, but your pick to win the Daytona 500.
Yeah, and it's very rarely that I'll actually at Daytona, pick somebody that I actually bet for this, because we don't look at odds. We just think who's going to win. I got Chris Buescher. He's my favorite to win this weekend. I think it's going to be out of the RFK camp. It would be really cool. It wouldn't be cool for my bankroll, but it would be really cool to see Brad Keselowski comeback story after he had the issue with the leg win. But I think it's going to come out of the RFK camp. But I'm going to say Chris Buescher wins the Daytona 500 this year.
I like it. That's a strong pick. Again, one of the top drivers in my model. I am not going to go with William Byron for the three-peat. It's really hard to three-peat, especially at Daytona. We saw Joseph Newgarden try to three-peat at Indy, and that did not go well. But William Byron, I don't think he will three-peat. I am going to go with, unfortunately, again, for my bankroll, I think it finally happens again, Joey Logano. So I'm going to take Joey Logano to win. I don't like the odds. It is not a bet you can make at 12-1 is the longest odds out there. Like I said, I have him not finishing on the first 2 laps over 40% of the time, 42.5% of the time. So you cannot bet him 12-1 to win. But I still think he is my pick to win. He's got the new look this year with the shaved head. I love it. It looks great. And we know how aggressive he is, how much he leads at super speedway races. And he's top 3 in my model. I have Ryan Blaney 1, and then Joey Logano and Austin Cindric are neck and neck for number 2. My model barely has Austin Cindric ahead of Joey Logano in the simulations. It could even just be like a good set of simulation runs for Austin Cindric ahead of Joey Logano. That's how close they are. But essentially, the Penske's are 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take one of those. I'm going to take Joey Logano to win the Daytona 500. So that is going to do it for us. Thank you for listening to the Daytona 500 episode of Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. If you'd like to tell some of the bets we discussed today, look for the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. We'll be back next week to talk bets for the Auto Trader 400 at Echo Park Speedway, aka Atlanta for us old timer folk. On behalf of my co-host, Stephen Young, thanks again for listening. We'll see you back here next week on Running Hot from Action Network.